What's up, Wackadoo Racing Channel, and welcome back. So we left you on red there for a little while. We took a couple weeks off to go ahead and do some other projects and get some stuff lined out, because as it turns out, working on one project for 4 months straight does tend to back up some other stuff. So this week I worked on 4 motorcycles that need to be brought out of storage, and this list right here is all stuff that needs to be taken care of as well. So now that the bikes are all dealt with, they're running, we can put them back into storage and get back to this stuff. First things first, we did not forget about Project Blitz. I can prove it. That's the new motor for Project Blitz. It's sitting right there. Cody went ahead and purchased another engine so we can put that engine in, get it tuned, hopefully everything goes well this time, and then we can take the broken motor out, tear it down, find out what happened, and if it's salvageable, we can rebuild it and use it as a backup motor. However, Cody has some additional obligations at work because he's pretty important. So he's, for the next couple of weeks, going to be pretty tied up, which gives me an opportunity to knock out some of these smaller projects on Project Bronson to bring it back up to speed and get it back on the road because it's been in storage as well. Especially because I can't go pulling up to Cars and Coffee or let alone the track and have Cody with his freaking turbo sticking out of the hood flex on me like that. So
it's going to happen anyways, but whatever.
I kind of need to do some work on my car. So we're going to be working on Project Bronson for the next week or two. Let's get started. So some of the small projects that we need to be working on for Project Bronson, we're going to start with these guys. So I don't have a front bumper on the car right now. The front bumper from factory was ruined and it had these little overriders that went on it, and I'm going to end up making some new ones that are a little more streamlined that match the aesthetic of the car a little better to me. So I'm going to make those. That's going to complete the look of the car a little bit more. That's just cosmetic, nothing special. We're going to throw some headers wrap at it. Turns out big stainless steel header with a turbo strap to it produces a ton of engine heat. I'm going to show you guys what that looks like on the thermal imaging camera and see how much heat we can get out of the engine bay. Here, we're going to go ahead and add a PCV catch can so we can try and catch some of that ambient oil coming through our system. With boosted cars, any blow-by should be captured. That's just a good practice. All my lines are starting to dry rot and crack because it's been in storage, so we're going to put all new silicone lines on there. They're shiny, they're blue, they'll look good. This guy's the important one. For my Miata community, in this box is the Super Miata 949 Racing Coolant reroute that you guys have been constantly nagging about. I told you we'd do it. We're gonna do it. We're gonna do it on both cars. We're gonna start with mine. This guy is the one I'm kind of most excited about that's going to be the most work, so we're going to cover it more in depth later. But this is an electric power steering assist out of a Saturn Vue with a controller added so that it has a rheostat so you can adjust how much input that it has, which should give us the ability to control electric power steering so that these massive oversized front tires are a little bit less feedbacky. So it should help. I know that I did it by putting the big tires on there, but I don't care. So hopefully that'll make the car a little bit more manageable on the highway and help things out. But first things first, we're going to start with these little bumperettes. So the factory GT6 would have had an enormous bumper that went all the way across the front of the car and actually hung out on the ends a little bit as well, with overriders that sat vertically as well to cover up the brackets. Now, I didn't like the look of them, and my bumper was pretty mangled when I got the car. So what I've done is I've made some little faux bumperettes out of some 2.5 inch round tube 180s, and I'm just going to slip those over, clean up my brackets a little bit, and then make some mounts to go from here to some of the mounting hardware that's already there. Now, with a little bit of luck, I might be able to send these off to be chromed, or maybe I'll just finish polishing them and throw some clear coat at them. The chrome would be more resilient. So let's see what I can get done. Boom! There you have it. So tiny little bumperettes. Instead of that big catfish whisker looking giant bumper, those guys cover up the ends. They look nice. I was going to have them chromed. I might still have them chromed later. Right now I just hit them with some Scotch-Brite and clear coated them because it's going to be like $150 to have them chromed, which is ridiculous for a car that barely has paint. So for now, those are there. I'm going to go ahead and move on to the next project. Next little project, headers wrap. I got some generic 1 inch. We're going to go ahead and wrap this header. The amount of heat coming off of it into my footwell is insane. I wanted to leave it raw. I like the look of it, and so on and so forth. It doesn't really matter. It needs to get wrapped. It's just too freaking hot. I looked at it with a thermal imaging camera, and you could see how much heat was radiating off of it into the engine bay everywhere ambiently. But yeah, I'm going to start on that. I didn't order gaskets, so I have to do it on car, which will take like 5 times as long. So wish me luck. there you have it, the took forever to wrap installed in car still header. So now I'm going to fire it up and I'm going to let it heat soak the engine bay, and then I'm going to pop the hood and we're going to see how much heat we can actually see coming off of that header now that I've wrapped it compared to right here where there's the in-between. Hopefully it'll be a difference. So you can see immediately the amount of heat that's coming off of that header side, and that's even with it being wrapped. But that's just what we're seeing, heat soak. Then we start looking at the actual cab. Yeah, it's difficult to see, but we're looking inside the interior. And you can see how much heat is coming up through the firewall and a lot through the trans tunnel, particularly at the front of the trans tunnel. So I'm hoping that'll be reduced a little bit compared to where it was. You can see all that heat soak up into the engine bay. That turbo blanket lets nothing out though. That's pretty impressive. I'm pretty happy with that. So I think that pretty much wraps up the header. I'm happy with that. I do have one little spot that shows, but I'm not going to worry about that. Engine bay is going to all get cleaned up later. I still have a bunch of work in here that we're going to do. But I think next what needs to happen is I'm going to replace all my vacuum lines with some brand new blue silicone ones, because these ones are starting to dry rot and crack from sitting for last year. However, since we're already here, I get some racing numbers for the doors, and I feel like that will make me feel happy. So I'm going to go ahead and put those on. There you have it, race car number. We're not racing just yet, but it has a race car number, therefore it's a race car. I love the look of it, so I'm happy with that. Moving on. Next up, we got all this nice brand new blue silicone rehosing kit. So I'm going to replace all that, and while we're there, I'm going to go ahead and put in a PCV catch can because it needs to have one, and I haven't until now. So we're already going to be doing all that. We're just going to throw that in as well. You can see some of our hose or lines were starting to crack pretty bad, and down here really badly. So it's stuff like that, and it's just a maintenance item really, but it'll also add a little bit of flair. I won't bore you with making you watch me do all that, but I'm gonna go ahead and do that now. Okay, that's gonna be it for the night, but we got all these vacuum lines all replaced. Everything that's here has to be here. There's really no more cleanly way to do it without getting really complicated, but the only real addition, minus just replacing all the ones that were starting to dry rot, is our PCV catch can here, which we're able to open the bleed valve on the bottom, and it spiked the idle immediately. So clearly we got vacuum going through it, and that'll catch any oil particulate that's going into the intake manifold and keep that from ending up in the system. So I think that's it for the night. Do it again tomorrow. Okay, so arguably the most important update I'll be making during this set of small upgrades is putting in a 949 Racing Coolant reroute Super Miata kit. This kit is supposed to be very all-encompassing, and it looks fantastically made. After reading the reviews, this was the obvious choice. Now, I don't know if it's the BP motor specifically or any other series in the Miata motor family. It doesn't matter. The point is, this motor was designed originally to be in a front-wheel drive car, and in a rear-wheel drive application they had to turn the motor and reroute some things to make it work. The end result is they all suffer from the same problem, which is the coolant enters the engine and leaves the engine from the same end, which is the front, and results in like a 30 to 40 degree difference between the front cylinders and rear cylinders. So that's problematic for a lot of reasons, but they have a nice kit that makes it so we can go ahead and put it so that the coolant comes in from the front and exits the rear of the motor. So I'm going to show you some of those cool parts. I'm not going to show you installation on the motor and show you the whole thing. There's some nice install videos already online, and they're not dealing with the very specific problems I'm going to be fighting to try and get it all fit into this particular chassis. So I'll get with you guys when I'm done. But for now, let's show you some of these cool parts. So it's difficult to see, but back here is where we're going to be replacing, and that's going to become the coolant exit. And the all-star of this kit is this guy right here, which is the new thermostat housing that allows you to put in there a really nice thermostat and still run your factory fan temp sensors and all that, well, engine temp sense. And then it comes with these really nice block off plates for either the end of the neck or directly to the block if you're getting rid of the neck entirely. It comes with this really nice thermostat that has some cool built-in features. It actually has some grooves cut into it that allow it to start engaging much faster, and so on and so forth. And then this guy goes up on top. Comes with all your hardware and Loctite and big round of hose to do everything. So this is going to be a really nice kit. I got to try and figure out how to get to that housing in that tight space. So let's see how it goes. All right, so on the back of the motor where this guy is, and I don't know if it serves the purpose of just for the heater or what. Basically, hot water gets pumped into this thing. This is where your temperature sensor goes. This is unnecessary. We're able to get this ugly thing off and get this massive, very skookum, very pretty Super Miata thermostat housing all put together. So we're going to mock it up, see if we can get it in place, and then we'll install it, rerun the hoses, and then our thermostat will be on the back, and the coolant will actually go through the motor. I'm going to show you some of the unique issues that I ran into on my car, because obviously it's not a Miata, which this kit was built for. So let me show you a couple things I'm dealing with. So one of which is the front block-off plate has this nice threaded port so that you can put a temperature sender unit in there. And that's great, and mine actually goes in there just fine, but I'm using an analog probe instead of a digital one. So it has to have a tapered seat inside for it to seal. So I need to drill it out and put this adapter in there that does have a tapered seat. So that's going to have to be a much larger hole that's going to have to be drilled and tapped to fit this so that I can use my analog one. So that's not too big a deal. I'm going to do that now. I'll show you what else I got. So it's difficult to see, but way down there is the actual coolant outlet. And it wants to run basically right through the corner of my battery box and through the sheet metal. And that's not going to work out very well, considering it's supposed to have this massive rubber hose attached to it, which does expand as it gets hot. So what I'm going to end up doing is I'm going to route a 1¼ inch steel pipe, and I'm going to just weld it up in several places to get it straight and try and get it as close to everything as I can and try and keep it tidy. And I'm probably going to headers wrap it so it matches the header a little bit and keep some of the heat down. But yeah, that's going to be a decent little fab project, so I'm going to start on that today.
2 hours later.
So it's 9:30. I've only got 5 beers left, and however far that gets me is when I'm calling it a night, but I think that's more than plenty to get this job finished up. I've got something mocked up that I think is going to work, but it already looks like I've been juggling cheese graters on account of there's a lot of sheet metal between where I'm starting and where it needs to end up, because this is not a Miata and the kit's designed for a Miata. Naturally, we kind of expected this. However, I got my coolant sensor put in place. That's going to work out great. And I've got something mocked up that I'm really proud of that I think is going to look really good at the end and add a ton of additional efficiency to the cooling system. So let me show you what I got so far. Try and get it welded up tonight. Maybe even get it wrapped and get it installed fully. And that should wrap up the coolant reroute. So way back there is where the coolant actually comes out, and it follows this rubber hose back through here, and then from there there's a junction, then it goes all this steel tubing. It has a couple of junctions in between, and then it reroutes, then it comes up and it's got rubber on this end. So I think if I got rubber on this end, rubber on this end, that'll take up any play in the motor between those two, and then I can fasten this mid tube somewhere here. I think I'll probably make a bracket that goes up around this region, and that'll give us the ability to wrap it up nice and tight, and that'll keep the wheel from touching it, and that'll keep us from leaning on it once it's wrapped so that it's not too hot. Really, the next thing is see if I can remove it in one piece. That might be more difficult than it sounds. We'll see what I can get done. What are you doing? What is that? You gotta leave? You gotta leave? Are you checking on me? Well, it's not done. I got more to do. I'm not coming to bed yet. I can't come to bed. It's not done. Boom. There it is. I'm going to go ahead and use the TIG on this on account of I didn't chamfer any of these edges on account of I didn't feel like it. I didn't feel like it. So I'm going to go ahead and use a TIG so I can get a lot of deep cut penetration in here, get these things all watertight, get it welded up real fast, hopefully get it primered, get it wrapped, throw it back in. There she is. It's slightly hotter than a $3 pistol, so I'm gonna go ahead and go dunk in some cold water, get it down to a temperature where I can get it primed, get it wrapped, get it back on the car. For those of you that are wondering, is it gonna test it? Is it watertight? It's watertight. I weld for a living. If you're new to the channel, that's kind of what I do. Like for money, like every day. So it's watertight, I'd bet your life on it. So I'm gonna go ahead and get it all wrapped up. It's 11:30. I did manage to get my cooling hardline in place, and I'm feeling really good about it. So check it out. So there it is. It comes out of the back and around. It's all headers wrapped, comes up to the front. Looks really nice and tidy, and doesn't intrude on the engine bay or the wheel well space. Well, I tried topping off the coolant last night, and as soon as I filled it up, it started running out of the back of the engine, either at the thermostat housing or one of the hoses. Something didn't seat properly, and I wasn't able to figure it out last night because it was too dark and too late. So I'm gonna try and figure that out this morning, and then I'll top off the coolant. So it turns out the actual thermostat housing that I just installed is what's leaking profusely, because it doesn't come with a gasket, it just comes with some sealant, and you're just supposed to put sealant on there and that's it. So I have to uninstall it now. I was able to get it off of there, and it looks like I had just a little bit of the original gasket still stuck to the block, and that was enough to keep it from sealing. Now, what I'm doing here is I like to take masking tape and I lay it on my material and trim it up, and I use that as a template for making my own gaskets. So I'm gonna go ahead and get this transferred over to some gasket paper, and then I'll put some sealant on there and try and reinstall it, and hopefully we'll be back in action. All installed. I went ahead and fired it up, and one of the nice features on this kit is it does have a bleeder valve on the back, so that you can have a high point if your radiator is in another location, so you can try and get any air patches out. So that's a really nice feature. I was able to bleed out any extra air, top everything off. Cycled it through a full heat cycle, waited for the fan to kick on, everything's good. Had a couple little leaks that I had to tighten up real quick just because I left the clamps loose, because I had to take this thing on and off so many times. But now it's on, it's done. Additionally, aside from adding a bunch of longevity to the life of this car, because now the coolant is actually going to be substantially more equal from beginning to end of block, and you'll have more stable temperatures, it also made it so that I could relocate my temperature sending unit, because I have an analog temperature gauge. And unfortunately, it was actually on the cold side of the radiator, because that's where I had access to at the time. Stuck it in there, and it's been reading cold radiator temperatures this entire time. I knew that and kind of knew what that meant for the motor, but beyond the point. Now it's in the correct place where I can actually get temperatures off of the block. So that's a nice upgrade. It needed to happen anyways. It looks nice. It's going to help out. I feel really good about it. Ultimately, if you got anything out of this, or you want to see the next video where we start cleaning some of this stuff up, getting it back to street use, and hopefully installing that electric power steering, go ahead and like and subscribe now. Otherwise, I think that's it. Wackadoo out.